Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. We have quite a long video here. We have two entire squads we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Exotic, finally. Probably should just talk about them after the first time they showed up in their little event, but they finally showed up in the main story last week. So now's a good time to hit up all their Bond stories, and then we have what do we have here? We got an event, Golden Ship, which is where we get introduced to, well, we spent a lot of time with Mast and Anchor, so I figured now's a good time to deal with Helm, Mast, and Anchor as well. So the Admiral crew, I'm trying to remember what their actual name is, but and we're not going to deal with, Helm's got a treasure, or a favorite item story. So does Viper, who's a member of Exotic. We're going to deal with Vipers now because there's no reason not to. But Helm's favorite item story is like takes place after other events, so we'll probably get to it after the next story, the next event, which is See You Again, because I'm pretty sure it takes place. It like canonically comes after that. Which See You Again also involves Helm and her alternative form as Helm Aquamarine, I think. So we'll get to that as well. Why did this stop? All right. So I'm trying to pull up my notes here. All right, so let's start with Crow, who's the leader of Exotic. So in her Bond story, we start off by visiting her in jail. She turned herself in, claiming that she was a part of a terrorist attack that occurred 3 days ago. And then she passes a newspaper because she wants us to solve the case before Nikke passes judgment. The newspaper talks about this attack. There was an irregular Nikke, and people are super mad. They're burning effigies and Nikkes and whatnot. And she wants us to find out the truth about what happened. And then she mentions a video footage that we haven't seen yet. So later that evening, we go and track down this video footage. It shows outlaws firing on the newspaper. Crow is standing around doing nothing. And then coming back to like the present, we go back and talk to Crow at jail again. About the outlaws. She talks about outlaws generally are treated less than human, that they're cast off into the outer rim, and why. Why is this the case? She talks about the value of life and what would we have done in the same situation. Should we have stopped the killing but not killed anyone if we could? But Crow says that outlaws have suffered a lot, so why stop them? They're just trying to get back like some semblance of like their humanity and whatnot. She talks about the central government not only gives rights to citizens, and so the outlaws can't peacefully protest. They can't be violent. There's no way for them to air their grievances or be treated better or to advocate for themselves. And then we talk to her about if she's sympathetic due to having grown up in the Outer Rim when she was a human, and she's extremely hesitant to talk about her past. She does reveal that she was born and raised in a literal dump. So she feels like the outlaws have no other options because she can relate to that. So doesn't see what they do as evil. They're just doing like what would naturally come to anybody, trying to defend themselves and get a better life for their families and stuff. Later on, we're thinking about what Crow said when we get a message from Polly. She reports that Crow was in contract with the instructor of the outlaws over the years, or the head of the outlaw group here. But about they don't really know why or what it was about. If it was just about something innocuous, if it was something related to this attack on the newspaper, whatever it was. So we go back to talk to Crow, who surprised us. Yes, we ask her about like what really happened here, and she mentions that Nikke is making her decision, so it doesn't matter. Eventually, we were able to talk her into spilling the beans, and we learned that the man's name is Jack. That he approached her a year ago and wanted to get legit citizenship for his daughter. And the Crows tried to like get rid of him and was like, whatever, get the fuck out of here. But he was super insistent. And over time, Jack was able to find a couple an older couple in the Ark who had citizenship to adopt his daughter. So as a thanks for taking his daughter and helping to raise her, he sent her money. And then he reported all this to Crow. Eventually, I reported a tabloid story on this family. Because they took in a child from the Outer Rim, and this caused a lot of problems. Jack got beat up by the police because somehow it got brought into all this stuff, and then eventually his daughter got taken away. And the parents, this put them in such a shock that that their daughter had been taken away that they've been raising for years. And that this attack on the newspaper that was led by Jack was because he's at the end of his ropes. Like he did everything he could to like support his daughter and get her out of the bad situation and whatnot. And some asshole newspaper reporter made all this suffering occur, like with the parents, with his daughter, with him, just so that they could make some money off his suffering, right? And then cross kind of like, who's the bad guy? Is it Jack? Is the newspaper? Is the daughter the bad guy? With this, we decide we're going to go and find the daughter. Later on, we're back with Crow. And we're so tired from like all the searching around we did that our vision's going blurry. And we don't know what to do because we turned over every record, but we never found any sign of what happened to Jack's daughter when she was taken away. And the crow mentions that we're missing the fucking obvious. Like, what happens when girls are taken away? What do you think? She's turned into a Nikke dumbass. That's right. So we reach out to Ingrid and get confirmation that this is exactly what happened. And then Crow mentions that this is what the central government does. It keeps people in their place. And that these Nikkes are barely considered better than outlaws. They're just like tools, right? And so we talk about how the goddess squad was so revered, almost as if they were actually goddesses. But since then, Nikkes by a lot of people are seen as barely human, like they're no better than animals or whatnot. And why have the Nikkes opposed this changes? Because there's not enough of them. And if the people had wanted to help the Nikkes, they would have stood up already, but they don't. So here we are. And so is this like, are the people innocent in this whole situation? No, because they didn't support Nikkes. They're supporting what the central government does. So they're just as guilty as causing this attack as the people who actually did it. And that the reason Crow turned herself in is because she felt like she had to stay true to her fellow Nikkes. Like, she couldn't do anything. And so she was just going to be like, well, I couldn't do anything, and I refused to help these people stop attacking other people, so what are you going to do? And then we find out that Enoch is ready for a decision. Crow mentions that Enoch's decision indicates the will of the people, and so that's what it is. And so we can see what the people think based on what Enoch's decision is. So we go to court. Enoch states that since the battle was human on human and that Nikkes can't attack humans, that an adjustment to the nymph will be made, and that citizens' lives will be more important than non-citizens' lives, and that this will be implanted into the nymph of the Nikkes, that if non-citizens are attacking citizens, then Nikkes will be allowed to attack those non-citizens. Back at the interrogation room, and that Crow is like not guilty because she was just doing what was programmed into her. Back at the interrogation room, Crow is kind of surprised, but only that she didn't get punished more directly. We're pretty mad about the decision because one life is not more valuable than the others, and we walk Crow back to the outer room. She asked us to hang around, so we do. Jackal and Viper are there. We find out that she purposely got put in the center so that she could have this conversation with us, and that this whole thing was like a plot for her to like feed us with like her crazy nonsense, which I don't necessarily disagree with, to be completely honest. As she's walking off, she tells us that anytime we tell her like, hey, you can just reach out whenever you want, and that she doesn't have to do such extreme things. She's a bit flustered by it as we separate from the gate. Later on, we're thinking about how we will someday fight for everyone to be equal and to stop the separation between citizens and outlaws, which wraps up her Bond story. Next up, we have Jackal. Jackal's a wild one. So we're out meandering around town when we see Miranda. She's looking for Jackal, who apparently got arrested, broke out of the station, and has been like causing mischief around town. We head in with her and talk to Polly. We also see where the bite marks are because the jail cell to get where Jackal like kind of escaped, and that it's hard to keep her in jail because she can just bite her way out of like anything. So we volunteer to go talk to her and take care of it, as long as the ACPU stay out of it completely. We find her gorging herself on some food and invite her to come with us. She agrees, but wants to stop somewhere first. So we go and meet up with Crow. Crow's just hanging out. We explain that we wanted to help Jackal have better control over herself so that she can live more peacefully with the other Nikkes at the outpost. Cray thinks that's impossible, but we believe we can do it. So Crow says, you have a week. If you fail, Jackal gets a gnaw on your wrist. Apparently, Jackal loves chewing on wrists. So back in her room, Jackal's just breaking shit for no reason. The counters question our decision to help Jackal and why she's even here. And then for a while, Neon and Ainz try to help. They give it pretty quickly. And then Rappy's like, hey, Jackal, can you pause for a second? And so she does. She points out some facts that we then get her to sit with us. We give her a treat and, rub her head like she's a dog. She gets a little offended because she is clearly not a dog, though she does love head pats and treats. After a couple days, we can get Jackal to calm down as long as we give her a treat. But once the treat's gone, she starts to act up again. We decide we need to try a different tact. So we take her outside and we talk about going for a walk, and then we hold her hand. We tell her if she holds on the whole time, we'll get her something even better than a Splendamin whatever treat. She likes this, and she likes holding hands, so we go for a long walk. We end up walking past Polly, and even though she hates ACPU, Jackal's able to convince herself to behave so she can get this treat at the end and continue holding our hand. Since this is successful, we take her to this fancy restaurant, and then we convince her to wait patiently to get food and not just rush and not be kind of crazy. And she's like, I feel really weird not being crazy. Finally, we get the food. She eats it like crazy. People run away. ACPU's called. And then we we talked to her about why she eats this way, about why she's so voracious in her eating, and she explains that as a human, she was like a starving waif and would do anything to get food, including murder, because it was justified, because if she didn't murder somebody to get money for food or to get food, she would starve to death. Appetizers come, then the main course. Oh, no, sorry. In the past, she would eat like crazy and drive people away and get arrested and whatnot for causing a disturbance. So now, this time when the appetizers come, then the main course, she eats calmly into her full, and we tell her that with us, she'll never be hungry again. So as we leave, we hold hands again, and we walk back together to our room for more food and more head pats. The next day, the counters are super impressed because Jackal's being patient, she hasn't destroyed anything, and later on, we head back to the alleyway to meet up with Crow. And Jackal wants us to come with her to the outer rim, but we can't because Crow's going to say no. Then Crow shows up. We show her that Jackal has learned patience and restraint. Crow is super impressed, but it's still time for wrist action. We're like, oh goodness, she's going to bite her wrist. Here we go. She then licks it instead, and she can't bite our wrist because she loves head pats, and if she bites her wrist, we're able to pat her head. So we do promise her more pats later. And with that, her and Crow head back to the outer room as we wave goodbye. Now on to Viper, the final member of the exotic squad, with her favorite item story as well. So we wake up in an alleyway in the outer rim with pounding headaches, and then we go 10 hours before this. Shifty sent us to check out some Nikkes that have been spirited away and used in the entertainment district. We go with an alias to keep it under the radar. Then 2 hours later, so 8 hours ago from when we woke up in the alleyway, we ended up finding a carnival barker who tricked us into going with him. We got drunk, we got robbed, and nothing like substantial got taken away, but just credits. We then see Viper, who asks us why we're swimming in garbage now. Viper mentions that she had to take care of some things. That's why she's in this alleyway. We tell her that we're doing what we're doing, and we ask for her help. In return, she wants to spend a whole day with us, wants us in a suit, and so we get dressed up, we go on a date, and while we wait for her connection to contact her about the club that moves around, where all the illegally trafficked Nikkes are. So we go to a bar, we go to a movie, we go to a restaurant, we're all having a good time, and then she gets the call, which is disappointing because she wants to continue our date. And we promise her that, like, hey, let's just get this done and we can go on another date sometime. So we head to, like, the secret bar and wait for the signal for the club to open. At that point, she asks us what our plan is, and our plan is to get in there sneakily, find the guest list, so that we can then rescue the Nikkes. Viper mentions that she's conflicted about helping, because she mentions that the owner of the club has a predilection for Nikkes, but she also mentions that by ignoring the manager, that she can learn more, we can learn more about the operations, which is something she's more interested in, and that could possibly lead to saving more Nikkes in the long run. We reject that idea because it's like, hey, we have a mission, we're just going to execute on that mission and do it. So it's a little confusing, and those things are so disparate, but fair enough. But we get brought in, and Viper reminds us to remember to act like a typical commander, to treat Nikkes like they're just things, and to not get too attached or too emotional about anything. So we see a whole bunch of trafficked Nikkes. But since we brought our own, we get access to a lot of stuff for free, right? Because the possibility that we're going to share, or that we're like a more impressive person or whatever. So we get taken to a private room, and we act like we're there to indulge with sex, obviously with Viper. She talks about what good day it's been, how she loved the date, and that normally doing so much work, normally she doesn't involve herself in so much work. She then offers us a drink, which we take a little, and then she mentions that she's happy we brought her here, as she could have not gotten in without us. And then so we start to like respond, because that's like a weird thing to say, and then we get a blurry vision and realize Viper used us to get here. And then it was not a trap, but that it was like this whole thing was like her plan all along. She mentions that we should have listened to her about the manager, and that we could have worked together, and that we could have had more fun. And then she like lays us down on the couch as we pass out and leaves. We wake up later when one of the waiters is knocking on our door. We tell him that we hit the coca a little too hard. And then ask about Viper, and he mentions that she left about 10 minutes ago. The manager then said that we can have anything we want, since we are such a good friend with the manager. And he's like, we want to see the manager. And so we head over there, and we find that there's no manager, just Viper hanging out. And she's like, I warned you about our mission. And she let him escape with all the evidence. And so we call Viper out on it, and that, what do you want from us so that we can make this happen? We go like, why are you still here? You clearly have some plan. And she's like, she does. And it's like, what do you want? I want the manager. And so she says she wants to take us some she wants us to take out some of the rivals of Exotic in the Outer Rim so they can have more control and power. And in return, we maybe get the manager. And so we agree. So she opens up a secret passage in the room, and we follow it out to find Jackal and Crow at the end of like a hallway with the manager knocked out. And so she hands him over to us, and then Jackal and Crow leave. We hang out a little bit longer with Viper because we said we'd spend time together for the whole day, so it's not quite midnight. So when midnight gets there, we ask if she orchestrated, while we wait for midnight to arrive, we talk about how she orchestrated the whole thing, and she teases us about us and tell us to remember the fun she had and the date, and then she leaves. Later on, Exotic's all hanging out. Jackal is very pleased with the whole situation, as is Viper, because they got what they wanted. The commander's in debt. Crow's mad, as she usually is, because she says that we have a corrupting influence on Viper, and that Viper might be swayed in the future to not be as devious as she has been before. And then they hint that she may be developing some feelings for the commander. Jackal doesn't understand what's going on, and Viper tells her they're just talking about one of their playthings, which ends her Bond story. So for her favorite item, we go a bit later on where Viper is looking at her first phone. It's broken, and she wants to get it to work. So maybe Honey, which is what she calls the commander, can help. We wake up the next day, and Viper's just hanging out. What's up, Honey? She shows us her phone and explains the situation. And we're like, I don't know if I can help you, but we can get up and head out anyway. First thing we do is we head over to Trony, who reluctantly opens the door. She's a shut-in, like Hikikomori, and just wants to be left alone. We show her the charger and the phone and explain things, and she agrees that she will help and sends us to find the parts and tools. So we hit up Leader over at Mighty Tools, who is able to give us the parts, who's able to like make the parts and get the tools and everything. And we talked to her about the phone and whatnot. We talked to Viper about the phone while we're waiting, and she mentions that she used the phone for a long time, and that it worked very good, and that it's going to work, well, hopefully work with a new charger. Back over with Trony is Aegis, her squad mate, and she's kind of hanging out waiting. And Trony is tapped out from all the sociality and being around Viper, who's a very social person. So we talked to Aegis for a bit. And she wants to install Boom on the phone, of course. And Viper is like, yeah, that's fine, go ahead. Like, thanks Viper for being so considerate of Trony and everything else that's going on. And that Viper left earlier as soon as she noticed Trony was having a little bit of struggle with like the social interactions. So Aegis is going to take all the parts and whatnot that we got from Leader over to Trony. And then we mentioned that Viper is being very kind and how she seems like a very generally nice person generally. And she's like, I don't see it that way. It's just how I act. I'm just going to be myself no matter what. At that point, Aegis returns with a fixed charger. So we take Viper over to a hotel. So that there'll be no prying eyes when we look through her phone. So she starts charging the phone, and we hang out and chat and whatnot. Viper teases us about believing her and going along with her because that, she always has a nefarious purpose and whatnot. When the phone is fully charged, she teases us some more and then gets disappointed because there's nothing really on the phone. She tells us that when she was new in the outer rim, she was tricked and robbed, but a random explosion saved her. She then knew that everyone in the outer rim was rats, including her. And that she shows us that her contact list in her phone is just numbers, no identifying information. And that how did she keep track of all the people in her phone? Like, what did she use? And she's like, well, I had a notebook. But eventually that, faded away as well. And she didn't really keep track of any of these people because they're all just rats trying to climb their way to the top. She then tears up what's left of the notebook and mentions she doesn't care about all that even a rat can dream that, and that now she only wants one person to call her, which is us, obviously. And she wants to know everything about us so she can put together a new notebook that's all about us, and she really wants to learn who we really are. And so we lay there in the hotel room and get started talking as she writes about us, which ends her favorite story, which is surprisingly not, there's no sex with Viper, but there wasn't. So there you go. All right, so the event for this week is the Golden Ship. And this is one stars Mast, and when it came out, it's when Mast finally was released as an SSR unit that you could get. So we're hanging out, and Mast shows up with a piece of a treasure map she got from Yan. It's all about Captain Alligator and his golden ship, and we mentioned that it's probably a scam because, Yan doing Yan things. And Mast is like, no, it's real, I promise. And we decide, fuck it, let's do this. Mast is hot, why not help her? But first, let's look and try to find the rest of the map. So we go to Cafe Sweetie and to see if they can help, because that's part of what they do is like the scavengers or whatnot. Only Freema is available, but doesn't want to help because, Freema just wants to sleep. But once we mention a golden ship, she becomes very interested. A few days later, Freema shows up and she found the rest of the map. It's in a treasure chest up on the surface in like this desert area. But when she found the chest, she got attacked by raptors, so killed them, and then she couldn't find out where the treasure is after that. Like, it went back into the sand. But she knows like generally the coordinates where it was at. So what are we going to do now? Mast knows somebody who can find it. And Freema's like, I'm coming along this time because I want to do adventure. So then Mast decides she's going to split the treasure with her 50-50, which she already promised us 50-50, so it's getting lower and lower. Anyway, let's see where this is going. We find out that the person who can find the chest is Anchor, because Anchor has this whole thing where she's like a radar detector as well. And I'm pretty excited because now I got two of my waifus here, Freema and Anchor, going along with this thing. So this is a fun event for me. Anchor makes fun of Mast for wasting her money and time, and then says that she'll come as she has time off because the Admiral is always running these crazy events, but there's nothing going on right now, so it just gives her something to do. And so everyone's like psyched up and ready to go to do this. So like tally ho, out to the desert we go. There, Anchor uses her radar. We find a cat bull, and then they're like, make it bigger. And then we find a rapture. We killed excuse me. And then we have to kill a whole bunch of raptors that get summoned afterwards. And then at that point, Anchor's having a real hard time because she wants us to hit her because hitting appliances is how you fix them, and we're like, Anchor, you're not an appliance. Jesus. So the Mast does a pep talk with Anchor and is like, all right, you gotta find a box shaped object. That's what's gonna have the map in it. And so and then she talks more about splitting the treasure even more, and it's like cool. So eventually Anchor uses it, finds the box, we get the rest of the map. Awesome. So she's like, hey, I recognize where this is, so let's go. So we start working our way up to where the treasure map tells us to go, and we reach the ocean. At that point, Mast changes into her sexy swimsuit, and then her and Anchor play in the water for a while Freema sleeps next to a tree. So we're like, fuck it, let's go. So we go join the girls in the water. There's several more stops along the way of just hanging out, being fun, having an adventure. And eventually we get to this triangle area of trees where the map has led us. And then Freema points out, hey, there's a ship, but it looks dilapidated as shit. And Mast is shocked by this. But we head inside anyway. We search around. We don't find anything. And eventually Freema falls through the floor because Nikkes are heavy and this thing's like falling apart. And then we hear a voice telling us to leave. After the dust settles, Anchor checks to see. And yes, the concern is that it's a ghost, but it's not a ghost because someone is actually here. And finally she comes out. It's Chime. Yes, hell yeah, Chime. So fucking awesome. Oh man, rest in peace her ever being a banner character, because this is like 2 fucking years later, which is sad, but she's the best. I love her. And this event is so good. But I'm pretty sure this is canonically the first time Commander ever meets Chime, because this takes place before in the story when you meet. I'm pretty sure, because he acts like totally surprised. Anyway, we talk to her. She introduces herself, talks about the crown, about I don't think she mentions crown at this point, but she does demand a toll because she was here first and because that's how Chime rolls. There's a huge argument, and then Raptures attacks. We beat them, and then we talk to Chime some more. She was sent here on a sacred mission, but refuses to give any further explanation. And because she couldn't find anything but an empty box, she takes off. And I was like, God, you shine like the sun, and you're already gone. I'm so sad. Then Mast is like, well, let's find this box just in case. So we search around, we find it, and then Mast finds a hidden handle in there. She pulls it and reveals a golden box. Cha-ching! Inside is a journal. No treasure. Mast is pretty dejected at this point, but the other girls are like, whatever, this was super fun. We had a blast anyway, because they're the best. Then we notice the journal says something. It's a pirate's journal. It talks about how the ship had been a ship called the Ocean Highway, and that's what this ship was. So apparently this wasn't Captain Alligator's ship after all. So we read the journal and we learn that the Captain Mac, he talks about finding a treasure map of the pirate god, which is Captain Alligator. He talks about his incompetent crew, and that, he relates his pirate crew, and the crew sounds like Freema and Anchor. And then after a while, he finally reaches the location, and it's full of treasure. And he keeps talking about this pirate's eye and how he left a map in the desert so that he could find the pirate's eye later. And then everyone thinks about what the pirate eye could be, since that is where the treasure is, and that's what we want to go find. And then Mast thinks she knows, so she heads up onto the deck and points to the crow's nest up top, which makes sense. It's like where pirates see things and whatnot. And Anchor does sense something using her radar powers that is up there. So Mast decides that she's going to go up and get it. So she goes, and she almost falls several times, but finally gets to the top. And once there, she sees like the magnificence of the whole surface. And then her bird, Morgan, finds a bottle filled with golden liquid. She heads down, and we all take a swig of it, and it's fucking delicious. At that point, out in the water, a fog starts to roll up. And then we all see like what looks to be like a golden ship sailing out in the distance in the fog. It only lasts for a little bit, and everyone's like awestruck by it, and it's amazing. And Mast is super psyched, and everyone is. And they're all happy that they went on this adventure together. And we promised Mast that we'll come out someday, and we'll be able to get to the golden ship and find it later. A bit later on, Mast is thinking about how much of a fun time she had on the surface, and she talks to Anchor about visiting the surface again, and they reminisce and they agree that yes, they definitely must come out to the surface again and have another good time, which ends the event. All right, so now it's time for Aegis. I remember the name because I looked it up. So we're going to start with Helm, who's the leader of Aegis, and we're not going to do her favorite item story because it canonically comes in after See You Again, which is the event for 2 weeks from now. So we'll talk about it then when we talk about Helm Aquamarine, which is her like alternative costume personality thing. All right, so Helm, we get an invite from Anderson for a soiree over on the Admiral. When we get there, Helm's giving a speech about the Admiral, its mission. A lot of people are questioning its existence because it's just a giant ship and a water tank in the Ark. We head outside afterwards to get some air, and we see Helm, who looks very sullen. And she doesn't want to talk, really. But we ask her if we can help clean up afterwards. So we get together with Mast, we clean up the floors, and then her and Anchor, Mast and Anchor, want to go rest and eat all the leftovers. And Helm's like, no, you can't eat leftovers. We're too proud for that, blah, 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 blah. After we finish up, Helm leaves looking very overburdened. Another party, this party's being finished up. They got lots of donations, and we talk to her some more, and she mentions how they're getting lower and lower overtime. She explains that the Admiral was made by Ellison as like a flex. It's like, we could build a ship with Nikke's on it, hell yeah. And then the central government bought it from Ellison because it was so powerful and so strong, but they keep slashing its budget since it doesn't really do anything because they're not taking it to the surface and they're not riding on oceans or doing any of that stuff. So Helm complains about being a fighter with no fight to fight. So we clean up after this next soiree with Mast and Anchor, who are getting fed up and so decide to bounce, ignoring Helm's commands because they just want to eat and chill. And then we find them sleeping later on with Helm, and Helm covers them up. We talk about her begging and how she's so tired of begging, but there's no other way to get money. We suggest that Talentum or one of the CEOs could help, and she's like, no. And then how about like a promotional video? So she's like, sure, let's do that. So we take her to her spa to show how Aegis can actually swim, unlike most Nikkes. And then we decide to show her off piloting the Admiral, giving commands, taking some shots from the bridge, shouting commands, stuff like that. And then she gives us 2 weeks to edit the video. Once we get that all done, well, actually, we're having some difficulties, so the counters come in to help. And once it's finished, the video is like wild. And he gets people at the party like super pumped to donate. But Helm steps up and says, no, I apologize. This is completely ridiculous. This video is an over-exaggeration of what we're doing. And so she cancels the donation event altogether. A bit later, we apologize to her, and then there's an actual explosion. Mast and Anchor panic, so Helm gets them in order to seal the breach and help the guests. We get asked to check on the terrorists that are inside, so we head down, and it's Heavenly Ascension. Then there's another explosion that knocks us out with them. We awaken later and find out that Helm saved us and that everything is taken care of. And she explains that Aegis did such a good job that the donation skyrocketed. And then she tells us that she wants us there for when the Admiral actually gets to set sail for real against the Raptures to take back the surface, which ends her Bond story. Our next Bond story is going to be Mast. So Mast and the commander are watching Pirates of the Caribbean, essentially. She talks about how it was made pre-invasion and that it's all real-life stuff, no CG effects or whatever. It was all practical effects and whatnot. And we're like, okay, sure. Anyway, apparently they're making a second one, and she wants to go to audition, and she wants us to come with her. So we cut to after the audition. Mast completely bombed it, and then we go back to the actual audition, and she didn't know any of the lines. She buffooned her way around. We go back to the present, and we ask about what if she would mind just being like a background character in the movie, like an extra instead of the lead. And she's like, okay, yeah, I'd rather be in it than not in it, so let's do that. So we go back, we audition for random pirates, and we get Pirate 1 and Pirate 2. So Mast gets Pirate 1, we're Pirate 2. So we have a good time acting. We see the original ship, and then Mast sees the guy playing the lead, and Mast really wants to meet him, like the Jack Sparrow wannabe character. And we warn her that, like, hey, meeting your heroes is not always what you expect, so maybe you just shouldn't, which is real-life factual information. And she's like, YOLO. And, of course, she's extremely disappointed because this guy doesn't like pirates. He's just an actor. He doesn't give a fuck about any of this stuff. And Mast is shattered. So later, we put together a whole thing for Mast at the Outpost pool. We dress like a pirate. We hide treasure. We have a whole act. Ines and Rappy help out. Mast comes in. She's super delighted. The whole event like reinvigorates her love for pirates and whatnot. A bit later, we're hanging out again on a date. She asks us to watch Pirates of the Caribbean again, so we do. She loves it. Says that she's still inspired to be a pirate with Morgan, her parrot. And then we get like a vision of her and Morgan on pirate ship, which ends her Bond story. Last here, we get to the final Bond story of Aegis, and that's Anchor, my dear Anchor, my precious Anchor, one of my waifus. So at some point, Helm comes to visit us for help, And it's because Anchor is a vast marine life collection, and that central government wants to take away. As we learn from like Biscuit's story and other stories, that the central government has like a very heavy control of all animal life, and Anchor's like animal like life, her marine life collection is like all real animals, but they've looked like the other way for a long time, but apparently one of them got out and someone slipped on it, so now it's like time for them to go. So Anchor's been hiding, and because she has a radar, because she's built with a radar, she's very sneaky, and she can probably get away, or she can get away when someone's walking up to her. So we assume that she's over by the pool, so we go, and she is. We help her organize all her marine life, and she shows us her favorite one, which is a squishy starfish, and she shares that she likes squishy things because she's hard, and she feels like a robot acting like a human. We disagree because she's a human to us, and that I am deeply in love with Anchor, and we go back and forth about it. Then we ask what she wants to do about all her animal stuff, and she's like, I don't know. And then we have an idea to take her and escape to the Ark from the outpost. There we talk about replacing the animals with something else. We head to the toy store. We talk to Balorta and Mika. She shares her animals. They talk about replacements. They got ooze. That's a big no-go. Then Anchor mentions that if she remembered her human life, then maybe she would feel better. And the Balorta and Mika are confused by this. And then because they remember their pasts, and we have to tell them that most Nikkes don't. That most Nikkes don't have a remembrance of their past. And if you go back to Balorta and Mika's Bond stories, we learn that they grew up in an orphanage and they have a lot of bad memories about that whole thing. So we discuss all this, and then we get a call from Helm, and she's working with the Central Bureau to try to get Anchor to be able to keep her marine life, but it's really not working out. And also Elysian was no help either. So we head over to Elysian so we can talk to Ingrid and see if maybe we can get Anchor's memories, if we can be recovered. We talk to Ingrid about it. She reminds us that this can be a good thing, but it can also be really a bad thing. It just depends. But Anchor is very insistent. So Ingrid looks through her records, and she found a pleasant memory for Anchor to have. So we go to the water under the Admiral. And then Ingrid mentions that Anchor should jump in from really high up because that will help like stir up this positive memory or some of her memories and help her remember so that she can get her memories back and be okay with the animals going away. So she does. So she goes to the very top of the Admiral, jumps off, is in the water, and we just kind of stand on the sideline and worry. And Ingrid's like, yeah, try not to worry so much. They can breathe for a while, I guess. They can go a while before they pass out in the water, and also she can swim very well because she's a member of Admiral. So meanwhile, we go down to Anchor, and she starts to have a vision, and she remembers that she was born blind and unable to walk, but she could always swim, and she loved it with all her heart. And that's part of the reason why she has the radars, because it's like, because when Nikkes are formed, especially the ones that are special and not just the mass-produced Nikkes, they always have these like connections to things that like kind of like the greater the tragedy, the stronger they become or whatever. Anyway, so we head back to the commander and Ingrid, and we're super concerned about what's going on and why she hasn't come back yet. So we decide to go get her. We jump in, and then at some point Anchor detects us with our radar, which helps her like kind of wake up from her vision and come to save us. After she pulls us out of the water, she talks about she always dreamed of teaching people before becoming Nikke, and teaching people about things. So being able to rescue us kind of gave her a purpose that she felt like she didn't have before. Also, she is keeping her animals. Ingrid is like, Anchor, you cannot. And then Mast and Helm roll in, and they're like, hey, we got a guild to sponsor Anchor to keep her pets, because the pets and her are going to be like a mascot for them. And so because of that, it adds to like the arc, and she is allowed to keep them under that. Instead of just having those pets, they're used as like to increase like revenue generation and the GDP always going up or some bullshit. Oh, man. And so so they can use likeness for ad campaigns and stuff. And then Anchor's super joyed and smiles at us, which ends her Bond story and ends this video. So go ahead and like, share, subscribe, comment, and we will catch you guys later. Bye.